That's hard, yeah. Okay, so swoosh. Poussez le bouton. Water? Oh, no, I'm good. I dried out last time I was here, but I think I'm okay this time. So, it's beautiful to be with you all today. Happy 4th. Did you have a sparkler time or fireworks? I have my token tattoo from my grandchildren. I was down in LA and had my 7-hour drive back yesterday, which was really great. And an hour here, I thought, I've done a working day in the car, 8 hours in the past 24. So my talk title, I wondered what I was thinking when I gave the talk title to Chuck. It happens like that sometimes. But the more I kind of grounded in it, the more I realized that it was the Founding Fathers piece that got me. And what I really want to focus on today is something that I think is really powerful for us to remember as unitics, because we're unitics. We're a little bit radical in the world of spirituality and certainly in the world of Christianity. There's a stunning, to me, very stunning statistic that was given by the World Health Organization. And that statistic is that right now they can measure globally 300 million people who suffer from depression. 300 million people is like the whole population of the United States. You imagine kind of being in a satellite looking down and looking at the United States and seeing that whole part of the world in depression. It's pretty astounding. And they estimate by 2020 that depression will literally be a pandemic in the world. And while we sitting here may not be suffering from depression, and I'm really banking that none of us are because we got out of bed this morning, and you got yourself here this morning, what I'm imagining is that most of those 3 million people have not had the experience of unity. They haven't had the experience of the teachings of unity, the blessings of community and unity that all of us have experienced. And I think it's really important for us to constantly return to that in our lives. You know, Jesus was a radical, totally radical. If you look at some of the writings in the Bible, you'll say, that, like the Sermon on the Mount, you have heard it said, but I'm going to tell you it's like this. Well, Charles Fillmore was also a radical. And P.S., Matthew Fox, radical. And I'm just going to say that all of you at some level are radicals. What do I mean by radical? What do I mean if you're a radical? A little different? Do your kids think you're different? Oh yeah. Oh yeah, oh mom. Okay. And maybe other people that you're connected with think you a little bit different. But how wonderful is it being a little bit different? And you know, the thing about Charles Fillmore, he and Myrtle, both co-founders of the Unity Movement, they were part of regular spiritual church. They were going to the Methodist Church. But in Myrtle's healing from tuberculosis, where she understood the message, I am a child of God, there I do not inherit sickness. That's not my nature. Sickness is not my nature. I'm a divine child. They got that message, and what they started doing was bringing people after church. They would have like little basket lunches at Unity Village, and they would start in their own kind of radical way to look at the Bible and look at what Jesus was teaching us from a different level of energy. So we often hear about Unity as being a metaphysical church. Do you all know when I say metaphysical, what I mean? So I think of like physical and metaphysical. Metaphysical is beyond the physical, like meta is beyond, is above the physical. So what we are experiencing as unitics, and as we understand what Charles Fillmore was teaching us, and as Charles Fillmore understands what Jesus was all about, we're moving into a realm that is beyond the physical. It's beyond that which the senses can detect. It's beyond that which we see as appearances in the world, whether it's through our ears or through our eyes. And what Charles Fillmore said was that the first coming of Jesus was this understanding of metaphysics. In a sense, understanding that we live and understand the teachings of Jesus, who Jesus was, the Bible itself, as something that's metaphysical, that it's beyond the actual literal teaching. And of course, we know in the world there are millions and millions of people who live in the literal understanding of the Bible, right? I'm listening on the highway to some of the Christian preachers, and I'm kind of shocked because I forgot that that's the way people understand the teachings of Jesus and the teachings of the Bible. But Charles Fillmore said, basically the first coming of Jesus for all of us is this mental understanding. In consciousness, we're understanding that what Jesus was, how he came for us, and how he's teaching us is beyond the physical. It wasn't about him as a physical body. He's a brother, right, and way shower. He's our guide and way shower. He's our elder brother. The divine presence is in each one of us. The Father and I are one. He came to say that. He meant that about you. He meant that about me. That's beyond the physical. So Fillmore says that's literally the first understanding about Jesus. But the second coming of Jesus is when we take that metaphysical awareness, that consciousness, and take it inside ourselves, and it becomes literally a spiritual awakening of all those qualities that Jesus carried and that we carry inside ourselves. That's the second coming of the Christ. It's when we're awakened to the Christ presence, not just that we're carrying it around in our head. And I don't know about you, but when I first came to Unity, it was 1990, coming out of a lot of pain in my life, a divorce, dealing with alcohol, dealing with, just stuff, the stuff of life. That awareness of the metaphysical teaching and the idea that I was a divine child of God, I was like, yay, I've got it. I thought I had it at some level. And from that place of like, oh, I think I've got it, in 1990, I became a licensed Unity teacher. I started teaching classes. I even started a church. I mean, who does that? That's just a crazy person to start a church. I didn't have people. I just started a church. Okay. But even in that point, I was still not in the second coming yet. I wasn't in the second coming. I was in that mental place of knowing that it's all about the metaphysics, and I would teach it about the metaphysics, but I wasn't grokking it in my own life in the way that I now kind of get how it's going. And it's so much more powerful and so much more exciting. So what Fillmore was talking about, and he really created a system for us. He talked about the 12 powers. Now, how many of you are aware of the 12 powers? A few. Yeah, I told Chuck it would be so fun here to do a series on the 12 powers, because this is the second coming, as far as Charles Fillmore explained it for us. And so what I thought I'd do today is really anchor us in the founding, basically the foundation, what we stand on in this second coming of the Christ, which is the power of faith. Your faith is your master power. Your faith is your master power. It's that quality that we hold inside of ourselves. It's not out there. People say, oh, I don't have faith. It's kind of like I'm saying, oh, I forgot my Bible. I don't have a Bible. It's not like that, is it? We all have faith. It's just, where are you putting your faith? Where are you putting your faith? Are you putting your faith in this? Are you putting your faith in the outer? Are you putting your faith in appearances? Are you putting your faith in the fact that you don't think you're going to be able to get home because the traffic's really bad? Are you putting your faith in the fact that you're having a disturbance in your marriage and your marriage is never going to work out? Are you putting your faith in the fact that your boss is a whatever and you really don't like your job? Are you putting your faith there, or where are you putting your faith? What is your faith? So Fillmore says, he has a definition of faith, which I totally love. He says, faith is the perceiving power of the mind. It's the perceiving power of the mind. So when we're perceiving, what are we perceiving? We could be perceiving out there, right? We also could be perceiving what's going on inside of us. It's the perceiving power of the mind, and it's linked with the power to shape substance. It's linked to the power to shape substance. So all those miracles that Jesus did, what was he doing? He had the perceiving power of the mind to see the health in the physical body, just like Myrtle Fillmore. I'm a child of God. I do not inherit sickness. I'm perceiving the health in my body, praying to the health in my body, and what happens? Power to link and shape link to the power to shape substance, health in the physical body. Jesus heals the dead. This is the power of faith. It's a power that's beyond the physical. It's even beyond the metaphysical, because we have to own it inside of ourselves. It's an activity of spirit within each one of us. Faith is the perceiving power of the mind. I see people taking notes. Linked with the power to shape substance. So I have a favorite Bible story, which, if you will indulge me, I'm going to read from the Bible. Do you get that often here? See, I didn't think so. So, and I'm not a bibliophile or Bible thumper or anything like that, but this story, I was realizing this morning as I was driving here, that the very first Unity talk I ever did was on this story. And it was probably 1993. I was so nervous. I had to go into the sanctuary. At the time, it was Unity in Marin, and we had a fire in our building, and so we were renting the Seventh-day Adventist church. And I had to go in the middle of the week, and if you've never done a talk, it's like one of the things that people are most afraid of. That and death, I think, are like really close. And I was kind of on the high end of death in fear mode. And so I read somewhere that if you imagine all the people nude while you're doing the talk, that you'll feel comfortable. And so I did a run-through by being on the stage, imagining that there were nude people out there, so that I could kind of get myself comfortable in the room and all that. Anyway, that's a total aside. But you never know. You might end up doing this sometime. So just know if you need help. I'm just offering a little help tonight. I'm not so sure I want to imagine you guys nude, though. We're an older crowd. It's so funny. So we had the earthquake in this is aside. This is not part of the Bible. I was there with the earthquake, and I have to tell you, it was really frightening. My kids live in Palos Verdes, and they're up on a hill, and I was sitting with my daughter-in-law, and little Thea was in her lap. She's like 18 months. And we're sitting on the couch, and all of a sudden the couch is going like this. I said, Jen, we're having an earthquake. And she said, yes, we're having an earthquake. We're going, when is it going to stop? And it just kept going and going, and then the plants are going, and then the light fixtures are going like this. It was pretty extraordinary. Anyway, the reason that ties in with nude people is that I was telling Roy, my partner, about this, and apparently one time I was in India, we had a little earthquake in the Bay Area in the middle of the night, and Roy jumped out of bed and ran outside, and he said he was standing on the deck with no clothes on, because he doesn't wear clothes to bed, and he said all of a sudden I had this realization, oh my God, what if we end up all the neighbors together? And I'm like the old nude guy in the neighborhood. So he said I ran back in and put my bathrobe on and hung my bathrobe by the bed, so in case we had an aftershock. Anyway, sorry, total aside. Hopefully, anyway, back to the Bible. So this is such a cool story, and it's going to hopefully really anchor for you what we're talking about here when we talk about the power of faith and how faith is what we're standing on. So this part of the Bible is in Matthew, and it's right after Jesus has done the feeding of the 5,000. So immediately he made the disciples get into the boat and go on ahead to the other side while he dismissed the crowds. And after he dismissed the crowds, he went up to the mountain by himself to pray. When evening came, he was there alone, but by this time the boat, battered by the waves, was far from the land, for the wind was against them. And early in the morning, Jesus came walking toward the disciples who were in the boat. And as he was walking on the sea, the disciples saw him, and they were terrified, saying, "It's a ghost." And they cried out in fear. But immediately Jesus spoke to them and said, "Take heart, it is I, do not be afraid." And Peter answered him, "Lord, if it is you, command me to come to you on the water." And Jesus said, "Come." And so Peter got out of the boat, started walking on the water, and came toward Jesus. But when Peter noticed the strong wind, he became frightened and began to sink, and he cried out, "Lord, save me." Jesus immediately reached out his hand and caught him, saying, "You of little faith, why did you doubt?" And when they got into the boat, the wind ceased, and those in the boat worshipped him, saying, "Truly, you are the Son of God." So I love this story. It's like one of my favorite stories. Hopefully most of you have heard it, but what I want us to do is take a look at it from the perspective of what Charles Fillmore said, a metaphysical interpretation first, and then I want you to take it a little bit deeper. So the disciples, in the understanding of metaphysics, represent the 12 powers within each one of us. And Peter, literally, the one who stepped out of the boat, represents the power of faith. Actually, before Peter was named Peter, his name was Simon. And Simon means listening. It's hearing things and listening. Jesus changed his name from Simon to Peter, which is the rock. Peter is the rock. Your faith is the rock that you stand on. So we've got this story, and all the disciples are in the boat. Jesus has gone where he always goes. He goes off to pray, goes to the mountaintop to pray. We went to the mountaintop before. We had that beautiful experience with the bulls and Ron sharing with us. We go into that place of stillness. Jesus comes down, and the disciples are in the boat. What's happening in the boat? The wind is causing rocking and rolling in the boat. They're getting disturbed by the rocking and rolling, and then they look out on the water and they see what they think is a ghost. Because why would they think it's a ghost? Would Jesus be able to walk on water? No! They would never say, "Oh, there's Jesus, he's over there walking on water." By the way, there's bacteria in that water. Just saying. So Jesus is coming toward them, and they're like, "Oh," and they get more afraid. They're already pretty scared because they're in the rock and rollin' boat, and they get more afraid. And then Jesus calls out, and who's the first one to go? Peter. Because Peter is our master power. Peter represents faith. So Peter's like, "I'm going." You know, he makes that decision. That's a big thing, to be willing. You got that willingness piece. He's going to step out of the boat, and he starts going. He's looking at Jesus, and he starts going. Then all of a sudden, the wind, and then he's looking down, and stinking Peter. He's sinking down, and down he goes. And so then he has to call to Jesus, because he doesn't think he can do it. He calls to Jesus, "If it's you, call me up and I'll come." And so Jesus calls him, and literally he comes, and both of them come back together and get in the boat with all the rest of the disciples, all the rest of your 12 powers, who are in the meantime like, "What's going on?" And the wind ceases and it's calm. Okay, so metaphysically, what could be the boat? The boat is something, the boat's the boat, okay? The boat could be on dry land. You could have a situation. I see the boat as like a situation that we're in. We're in it, okay? You're in a situation. In this case, you're in a boat that's, water is our emotional field. It's kind of the emotions and the feeling nature of what's going on. You're in a boat, and in this case, the disciples are feeling afraid because there's disturbance in the water, right? The only one who's willing to actually deal with that disturbance and connect in with higher consciousness, which is what we're called to do when we anchor ourselves in faith, is Peter, the faith consciousness. So he's willing to literally step outside of the situation. And when he does, where does he go? This is an interesting piece that I never really got before. He steps outside and he literally goes to that place of the water. He pays attention at some level to what's going on emotionally. And when we do that in our own life, sometimes we can have that experience of thinking that it's real and sinking. Thinking that those emotions are what is real and sinking down. But when he lifts himself up and connects with the consciousness of the divine, the Christ consciousness, he literally can link himself with the power to shape substance. Substance is shaped, and he's walking on water. He's totally moved out of that disturbance of the rocky road of the water when he's connecting in with the Christ. He's connecting in with the God presence, the Christ presence. And then the two of them come back, Jesus and Peter. They get in the boat, and what happens? It's calm. It's calm. So there's lots of ways we could look at this in our own life. I mean, one of the things that I just, at the very end of just speaking this about, when we connect ourselves with that Christ presence, when we bring ourselves into the awareness of higher consciousness, our connection with the divine, we instantly can move into a place of calm. We're no longer in that place of feeling like we're going to sink down into the emotional field, or even that the disturbance that we felt in the boat, the situation, has control over us. We can come back to that situation and be in that situation from a place of calm because we've got that connection with the divine, that connection with the Christ presence within ourselves. So what is it in your life that might be a situation that you're in right now? What's a boat that you're living in? It could be a family situation. It could be something going on in your health. It could be the health of somebody in your family that you're caring for. And just be aware of the disturbance that you may be experiencing. That watery energy of the feelings that are coming up inside you. Because we can often say it's the situation that's causing us the disturbance, but it's not the situation that's causing you the disturbance. What's causing the disturbance is the water and the wind. The boat is the boat. It's like we have the experience of life, and we're called to be coming into that experience from a calm place. We're called to step out and know from a place of firm faith, connected to that indwelling faith like Peter, that we can step out of the situation. We can be aware of whatever those feelings that we have, whatever the emotion is, whether it's anger, frustration, disappointment, confusion, whatever it is, that internal disturbance that we have, and we can connect in with that higher presence, the presence of the divine. And once we do that, and sometimes, we, like Peter, we have to ask. We have to, please, I need your help. This is what prayer is, right? It's asking the divine. I need help now. I'm sinking right now. But I know, because I have a faith like Peter, we're willing to take that first step. We're willing to take the step out of whatever the situation is and be willing to see what's going on inside of ourselves. And then when we connect in with the Christ, that's when we can move into the place of peace and calm. That's what we do when we come here at church, when we set into the stillness. We move into that place of calm where all things are possible. So what is it in your life? What's going on in your life right now that might need a little awareness of your faith faculty? An awareness of how strong that faith faculty is inside you, and how you can connect with the presence of the divine. And that the overcoming, that higher consciousness, the second coming of the Christ, the second coming is not just about Jesus coming back. It's about you. It's about your experience. When you connect in with that Christ consciousness, it's about the healing that happens in your life, whether it's a physical healing, whether it's a healing in a relationship, whether it's something going on in work, whatever it is. It's being willing to step away from the situation, to not keep yourself locked into this, to move out of what feels like people, places, and things. And not to blame the situation or the people in the situation, but rather to step out and see what's going on inside me. You know, what am I carrying? What kind of emotion is causing such a disturbance in this situation? And then from that place and that awareness, to be willing to ask for help from the divine, to call on the Christ presence, to call on the divine. And in that connection that we have with the divine, the calm comes. The calm comes, and we're able to get back into the boat. We're able to be in that situation. And whatever it is that's ours to speak or to do or to say in that situation, we do it from that place of carrying the Christ presence within. We're in that higher consciousness. So I just invite you, anchor in right now for yourself. Just close your eyes for a minute and anchor in one boat, one situation in your life right now. Just see what it is. Maybe there are others involved, because there are probably always others involved, you know. And maybe there's people you want to blame, or you're angry about something, or you want to change how things are showing up, or you have some judgment around it. Just be willing to see that that situation is happening, that the outer situation is happening. And then be willing, like Peter, to step out of that situation for a moment and to feel inside yourself, what's the storm inside me? What am I doing inside? What's the storm? Is there a certain quality of feeling that's going on inside me? It's totally mine. It's my reaction to that particular situation. But knowing that you already have stepped out of the situation, that you're willing to see what's going on inside, is a powerful connection with the divine. You've anchored and you've taken a stand on your faith. And as you feel more deeply into that experience of whatever's going on inside yourself, when you're ready to just reach out and ask the presence of God, the presence of the divine, the Christ presence, however you know that presence, to lift you up for this moment, to let you walk on that still surface and connect completely with your God, the God of your heart. And as you do that, you turn around and you walk back into that situation. Maybe you're going to walk into that situation tomorrow, maybe next week. But you're going to do it from a place of calm presence, because you're bringing with you that higher consciousness of your divine. So feel yourself back there. Maybe you're in the boat again, just imagining with all those other qualities, the quality of imagination that you carry, the quality of understanding and will, the quality of love and zeal and power, words you can speak. Perhaps there's a divine order that needs to happen in the situation, or some letting go, or some creative energy that's yours. Just know that united with the power of the Christ, the living Christ presence within you, you have access. Once you've stepped out in faith and anchored yourself in and with the power of the divine, You have access to all these amazing inner qualities. And from a place of calm, you can be present in the situation to do what's needed, to speak what needs to be spoken, or to simply be silent. So offering up gratitude for this awareness, for the great blessing of your radical life, that one radical life that is yours, and the blessing that you bring as you carry the Christ presence in a calm and loving and holy way. So thank you, and gently invite you to open your eyes, be present back into the room, and feel all these other beautiful beings who are in the boat with you that you may need to reach out and ask for help. Maybe some prayer support from Betty today, prayer support from me. So thank you. Take 3 nice deep breaths if you haven't already opened your eyes. And on the 3rd breath, please open your eyes. And so it is. Thank you, Jesus.